So I'm talking to Stuart Moore and Tom Peyer of AHOY Comics. Stuart does the Captain Ginger and Tom does the Wrong Earth. So we're going to, just kind of be asking them about what they do and how they got into comics and involved with the company. Hey guys, how's it going?
Pretty good. I mean,
Yeah. Quarantine.
Yeah, quarantine, exactly.
Now you guys are in Syracuse, correct?
Tom's in Syracuse. I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay. Well, we have Syracuse, Brooklyn, and Albany now.
Oh, good. Yeah. Like a little line. Yeah, a little geographic.
Yeah. So my first question, and either one of you can decide who goes first, but how did you get involved in comics, and then how did you get involved with AHOY?
You want to go, Tom? I'm not sure if Tom can hear us. Tom, can you hear us? I'm going to text him.
Okay.
There he goes. He's answering the phone.
All right. Oh no, he's restarting his browser.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I can just go if you want, or do you want to restart?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. How did I get into comics? Lately, I've been thinking, how do you get out of comics? Is a little better question. But I've always followed them. I started as a book editor at St. Martin's Press, and when DC was expanding the editorial group that became Vertigo later on, I came over and joined them. So I was in on the start of the Vertigo imprint there. I was an editor there for 9 years, roughly. And after a little stint at Marvel Knights, after that, I went freelance, and I've been a full-time writer for, I guess, the last 18 years. It's been a while. So that's good. What was it? Oh, and who am I? What do I do? I've been, like I say, I'm primarily a writer these days with AHOY. I've been writing the series Captain Ginger and Bronze Age Boogie. And I've also, I wrote a kids graphic novel for DC recently called Batman Nightwalker. It was an adaptation of a prose novel by Marie Lu. Right. And I did Deadpool the Duck at Marvel a couple of years ago. That was fun. So I like to keep my hand in here and there. I do a lot of stuff. And at AHOY, I also handle behind the scenes publishing operations, which I just call ops, because it sounds like I'm walking away from an exploding car or something. And I just kind of like the sound of it.
And so how did you get involved with AHOY? Because it's a relatively new publisher.
Yeah, and I was in on it almost from the start. Tom called me. He was starting it up with Hart Seeley, the publisher. And Tom and I were editors together at DC. We, again, at the birth of the Vertigo imprint, back when we were doing books like Hellblazer and Sandman and Swamp Thing, but Preacher a little later. So we've known each other. We've been friends ever since. And he, I think, initially called me and asked me if I wanted to edit his book, The Wrong Earth. And it evolved into something else where I was handling more behind the scenes stuff and writing and editing my own stuff as well. And that's pretty much how it's worked ever since then. It's a small team, but we all work very well together. It's actually the sort of, I would say it's the smoothest work experience I've ever, work experience I've ever had. And I'm definitely feel trusted at every step by these guys.
So while we're waiting for Tom to get back on, let's talk a little bit about.
Oh, me, yeah. So
let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Captain Ginger. I have my own little Captain Ginger here.
Oh, look at that guy! He's great. What's his name?
That's Tigger 2.
Tigger 2. I can tell there's a story behind that. Yes.
Well, my wife had a Tigger growing up, and I guess it looked exactly like Tigger here. So it's kind of the play off the Simpsons thing, Snowball 1, Snowball 2. So the first season of the book was just cats, but I hear the dogs are coming.
Yes, the dogs actually made an appearance on the last page of Volume 1, which is out in trade paperback now. Yeah, season 2, we actually launched it in, I think, February, and we got 2 issues out before everything locked down. So we're exploring exactly how to finish it for now. Again, I handle sort of the scheduling and the publishing operations for Ahoy as well. And one of my main goals in that capacity is we have 4 trade paperbacks due to come out in the fall, and I want those to come out. So we're trying to figure out how to finish serialization of some books like Captain Ginger and Billionaire Island that we already started. And we're literally just now, we had a meeting yesterday to try and figure out all the details, and we'll have announcements on a lot of that next week. But some of them will be coming out on a slightly accelerated schedule through Diamond. Some of them may be coming out digital only. But what we really want to do is just not delay the trade paperbacks, because the book market is still quite active and open, and we want to have material going out to comic shops as well. So just figuring out how to handle the serialization so we don't have to push all that stuff back too much. That's kind of my priority. But yeah, Captain Ginger, yeah, we got 2 issues out. We pretty much got the ship, spoilers, I guess, but we pretty much got the ship almost destroyed. And then everything stopped, you know. So we'll and literally the cats were just about to meet the dogs too. So that'll all happen soon in one form or another, and in trade in October, I think.
Well, we also have 2 dogs, so.
Yeah, I don't know as much about dogs. I had to rely on June about that. She just sent me some extras for the trade paperback, which are kind of cool. Like, she does illustrations of animals. She's done them for magazines, and she had a couple of she has some really nice like just rather lush looking illustrations she's done of Labrador retrievers and Jack Russell Terriers that we're gonna put in the back of the trade paperback and match up with the characters she wound up basing on them. Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right, hey Tom, you're back with us.
I'm back, and I can see and hear you now.
Oh, good. That's always a good thing. So, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with comic books, what you've done in the industry, and how you got involved with Ahoy.
I started as a child. How I got involved in making comic books. That would be. I started late. I was in my mid-30s before my career really started. But I did have a local comic strip and an alternative weekly for a dozen years before that. And that led to some connections. Roger Stern, the great Marvel and DC writer, was writing Superman at the time. And we met through Ithacon, which is a convention in Ithaca, New York, near Syracuse, where I am, which is still going on today. But this was a long time ago. And he helped me get in. He helped work me into comics. And Mike Carlin was instrumental, and then I got hired to be Karen Berger's assistant editor in the office that became Vertigo later. That's where I met Stuart, and the rest is like a similarly dull recitation of fact.
And you are currently writing The Wrong Earth, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit, give us a little background on that one, and kind of what influenced, what made you think of the idea for the story?
Well, I was. It's about this. You've got a superhero, an idea for a superhero. This is a guy who dresses up like a dragonfly and fights crime. And on one Earth, he is a very naive, sort of comical figure, hero for children. And on the other Earth, he is this horrible, ultra-violent vigilante. But they're the same character, personified on 2 planets. And in The Wrong Earth, they swap worlds, and they both have to, they both become trapped in these versions of society that they are very ill-equipped to understand or fit in with. One is the sort of like flag-waving, naive Earth where bankers are good guys, and the other is a corrupt place where all the good guys are bad guys. So, and you need to be ultra-violent.
I think I first when I first read it, it hit me as the 1960s Adam West Batman stuck in the Frank Miller's Dark Knight, and the Dark Knight version stuck in the Adam West 60s version.
Mm-hmm. Our legal department says that I've never heard of either of those projects.
So, where does season 2 pick up for The Wrong Earth?
Well, it's a year later, and we had some hints in the first series that we're going to have some environmental problems. The water started tasting bad to everybody. And we're going to skip a year, and we're going to find out that the environmental problem on both Earth has become drastic, very drastic. And there's a third Earth involved. So that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, we saw the third Earth again at the end of
Right.
volume 1.
We saw that on the last 2 pages of The Wrong Earth. We saw a bit of the third Earth.
And you work with Russ Braun on that. He's a friend of the, he's kind of a local guy, and I've interviewed him a couple of times at shows.
He's a great guy and a wonderful artist. He did one story with these characters. That was our free comic book day comic for last year. And but the series, the larger series, the main series, Wrong Earth, is drawn by Jamal Igal, who co-created the characters. And we also have another series, Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, which shows the characters before they swapped Earths, and that was done by Peter Krause. And that collected edition will be coming out very soon.
Yeah, it should be in comic shops June 3rd. That'll be our return to publication, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Ahoy rumbles back into the comic shops.
Yeah, we're gonna go into a confined space and have a barbecue on it. 3,000 people.
So, Stuart, are we going to see any more Bronze Age Boogie?
Bronze Age Boogie, I have ideas for it. We started work on something, but to be honest, the first one hasn't sold in trade paperback as well as we'd like, so it's on hold for right now. It could still happen. I had some ideas about jumping into the 80s, which would have been interesting, but I'm not sure when or if that'll happen. Hopefully.
So, what else? I mean, I know that when I was reading Bronze Age Boogie, there was one time when the characters showed up in Albany, New York.
In Bronze Age Boogie?
Yeah. I thought it was in one of they traveled to Albany. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong.
Huh. I don't know. Maybe you fell asleep with the book and you dreamed they were in Albany. I don't know. It's possible. Like, so much happened in that book. I may have totally forgotten. I don't remember. They wound up in about more than half the book takes place in barbarian times. But I don't remember the Albany scene, but I will totally take your word for it.
Stuart and I have been in Albany together.
That's true. We spent a week one night in Albany. Yeah. And I should mention too, Tom's done a bunch of other stuff. You've got on the screen here High Heaven, which was his other initial project. And he's also the editor of Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror. And there's Hashtag Danger too. So
yeah. All great books. I especially love the Edgar Allan Poe.
Thank you.
I talked to Mark Russell beginning of March, and I talked to him about his contributions to that with the serial monster stories.
Mm-hmm. I love those.
Yeah, they're really fun.
So if you could get a whole book from him about those, I'd buy it.
We at very least would like to do a bunch of them and then collect them. And our lawyer says that they have nothing to do with breakfast cereal.
But yeah, Mark has more of those planned, I think, right?
I think he's got like 8 stories in his head.
Mm-hmm.
In all, he told me, and that could change.
So do you want to talk a little bit about Tom? You want to talk a little bit about your other books?
Sure. High Heaven is drawn.
Tom, you want to talk about your other books?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I'm getting
I can hear you, but Chad's freezing up.
I'm getting a strange glitch in the transmission.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'll talk about my other books. High Heaven is about a guy who dies and goes to heaven. He dies accidentally. He's youngish. And he goes to heaven and he gets there and everything is just sad and mediocre. And everyone he meets hates him because he can't stop complaining about heaven. And that is drawn by the illustrious Greg Scott, who is absolutely wonderful. He's a guy who'd be good on your show. He lives in Staten Island. He's a terrific artist. And #Danger with another terrific artist, Chris Geruso, who's like me, is from Syracuse, New York, although he doesn't live here now. He has a very funny children's kind of style, kids book kind of style. He did what was it called? Marvel Babies, Stuart?
What was that called? Marvel Mini Marvels.
Mini Marvels.
Yeah.
So he brings this style to my stories of this.
He was a guest at one of the local library cons here a few years.
Okay. Well, #Danger is about this extremely well-funded group of scientific adventurers who have no idea what they're doing or why they're doing it. And they're very, very foul-mouthed. And it is the joy of my life to see bad words coming out of these adorable characters' mouths.
And I bet.
And
are you back? Did you lose that, Chad? That last bit?
Yeah, that's fine. I think I got it. My stream just dropped up. Yeah, I can hear you fine. So I was saying that Chris.
Someday we're going to be talking about how primitive this all is.
Yeah.
Remember those early video calls? If Chad is here and talking, I can't see or hear him.
Oh, I can see him now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can see and hear you clearly.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Well, Chad is on. I can see and hear him.
All right. Maybe I need to leave and come back again for it to work for me.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
He says he's doing it, I guess. Do you want me to keep talking, or do you want to just resume when he gets back?
No, keep talking.
Okay. I have to figure out what to talk about.
So, how about if you want to kind of talk about how the current situation has affected, the comic book industry? I know you alluded to it, a little bit with your publishing schedule, but do you see any changes coming out of this, or?
Oh, definitely, but it's sort of hard to tell how it's all going to shake down, and a lot of that, sad to say, is going to depend on how many retailers survive, because retailers operate on pretty thin margins, and they don't have a lot of financial cushion in the best of times, and this is not the best of times. The thing that the 800-pound gorilla here is always Diamond, and when Diamond closed down, suddenly you had a situation, and I don't blame them. They had to, but suddenly that created a situation that was very difficult for publishers to manage. And you've seen them all, from the biggest ones to small ones, reacting in different ways. But the problem, the needle everyone's had to thread, is that stores that are open very desperately want product. They want new material. Stores that are closed do not want you to ship new material because they will miss it and their customers will miss it, and they're afraid it'll be hard for them to catch up. And they're right. So what do? You have to find ways to try and get something to the stores that are open so you can support them and keep them going and keep them in business without screwing over the ones that aren't. You've seen DC take some very aggressive moves. I admire their initiative. I think they've gone a little too fast on a couple of things. It seems like there've been some bumps just in the distribution process. For smaller companies like us, it's a little easier in one way because we're just not as vital to the survival of stores. So we can kind of hang back, figure out what to do, and address the books on a case-by-case basis, which is what we're in the process of doing now.
One thing I do enjoy from the Ahoy books is the back material.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Have either of you contributed to any of that?
I've written a few stories.
Yeah, Stuart's written a couple real good ones. I haven't. I haven't even tried. But there used to years and years. This is part of comics history. There was like decades in comics before letter columns, and they would always have some little short story in them because if they were going to get favorable, cheap postal rates, they had to have some text material inside them. It couldn't just be comics. So, and that's why letter pages exist, basically. When we started Ahoy, we were looking at all of comics history for ideas, and not for like any kind of nostalgic revival, but what have people done that has worked and hasn't worked. And we saw these old stories that people would write as fast as they could for as little of money as they could get away with being paid. And we thought, what if these were good? So,
yeah, they were always written by like the assistant editor the day before the book had to go to press or something. Like
yeah,
that.
Totally.
They were always just some ripoff of a movie that usually like, or some radio show they just listened to or something like that.
I think in my life, I never read one all the way through.
No, and they're really short.
They're really short. So it's worked out really well. We've worked with some excellent writers, and I think I love the idea of I think our readers are smart. I love the idea that they could just come across something that has nothing to do with a comic book and enjoy it. And we've even published poems and puzzles back there and stuff. And the big idea is we don't want you to pay $3.99 for a comic book that it takes you 5 or 10 minutes to read. So we'd like you to be able to sit and spend some time with it. And this really helps with that.
So, did you guys ever release the results of the steel cage match issue?
Yeah. That was a controversial thing in the end. Recap for anyone who doesn't know what it is. Steel Cage was an anthology Ahoy published that had new stories by me and Peter Gross, Tom and Alan Robinson, and Mark Wade and Lana Subaki.
Subani. Yeah. Lana Subani.
Lana Subani. And we invited the readers to vote on which one they liked best. And for some reason, and I don't know what it is, like my story got like 4 times as many votes as anything else. And it was, well,
your story got about 10 times as many votes as issues sold, copies sold of the issue. So clearly there was some kind of voter fraud that was trying to do it to win. And we investigated Stuart. We didn't find anything. And the investigation into Steel Cage Gate continues, or I like to call it Stuart Gate.
So we made a big announcement at San Diego Con last year that all 3 stories were now winners, and that was because there was just no other way to be fair about it, and I had to grudgingly accept the results, even though I was clearly denied my democratic rights in this matter. And the first of one of the stories, which coincidentally is Tom's, is about to be spun off into the series Penultiman, which we had that announced for publication soon, and we've actually pulled it. We're gonna relaunch it in the fall when things can be done in a little more orderly fashion, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. So the entire 4th wave is going to be in the fall?
No, just that book, because that book hadn't shipped at all yet. We're keeping Captain Ginger was already in progress. Billionaire Island we published 1 issue of, and that one's tricky, but we're going to keep it coming out. I think we'll have an announcement about that next week. And Ash and Thorn is the trickiest one because that was a new launch by Mariah McCourt and Sue Lee. And we have 1 issue of that that's literally sitting in the Diamond Warehouse, issue 1. So we have to kind of figure that one out. But those 3 will all continue and be collected in the fall. Penultiman had not shipped. We hadn't printed any of it yet or anything. So we just made the decision to pull it and re-solicit it in the fall.
Tom, can you give us like a brief overview of that?
Oh, Penultiman? It's got this wonderful artwork by Tom Robinson, who did a series for us called Planet of the Nerds with writer Paul Constant. And he's got this style that it's kind of whimsical, but it just toggles from like humor to tragedy so easily. Yeah. It's like Alan himself. It's really full of feeling, you know, and I love his work. And it's about a superhero who's like kind of he's kind of perfect. He's like people felt about the Christopher Reeve Superman, sort of. He's just, he's breathtaking, you know. When he walks into a room, you just can't look in any other direction. And he has a secret that we learned in the Steel Cage story, which is that deep down he really hates his own guts. He really thinks he's awful. And it's not his fault, and he's not awful, but he's got a terrible, terrible problem with inferiority. And so since we saw him in Steel Cage, he has built an android version of himself, and the android has decided to try to straighten him out and fix his psychological problems. And that's the struggle there.
The android is named Anti-Penultiman.
That's right. We're also going to meet pre-Anti-Penultiman.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. You mentioned too that we reissued the Steel Cage story, but on its own as Penultiman #0, which is a free download from Comixology.
Okay.
I can go read that right now.
And where can people go if they want to check out both of your books?
All the AHOY books are, all the AHOY trade paperbacks are available from the usual, from comic shops, from Amazon, from Barnes and Noble. If you go to our website, which is comicsahoy.com, the books are all listed there, and there are links under each of the trade paperbacks for the links for Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and IndieBound, which will direct you to an indie bookstore. My stuff, at least, actually, we have a page up also on bookshop.org, which is sort of a clearinghouse thing for indie bookstores, and is specifically designed for mail order during this time. So that's a good place to go. There's an AHOY page. There's also a page just of my stuff. So that's I would point people there. That's a good place to go, especially if you don't have a local store that's either open or accessible right now.
So is there anything else you'd like to mention that maybe I forgot to ask both of you, or just anything else, or anything that you can?
We're working on, I should mention, AHOY is working on the return of Second Coming. That's planned to continue. And we're hoping to have it back in the fall. That'll depend a little bit on the art situation, which we're sort of figuring out. We're sort of figuring out what books to put out when right now, because we did delay Penultiman, and we need to work out the schedule for the fall. But that's bearing down, and we're hoping that the distribution system will stabilize enough that people can find the books. In any case, all our books are available from Comixology digitally, which is a good option at this time. Though we also encourage you to patronize a local comic shop if you have one that's open and doing hopefully curbside delivery. Because I don't think too many of them are actually open right now.
I know a bunch of the shops. Most of the shops here in Albany are doing curbside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not too much open here in New York City, but like Midtown is a big mail order operation. So they're obviously still doing that.
Yeah, we have one here called Comics Zone with an X that's doing mail order and I think curbside. So.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything that you're currently reading that you would recommend?
I've been reading mostly books. What am I doing? I'm reading a lot of, because of a side project I'm working on, I'm reading a lot of young adult and middle grade science fiction. And I'm really enjoying a series. I guess I'm not sure what the overall title of it is, but I'm in a book called Aurora Burning right now, which is by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. And it's just far future space stuff, very heavily inspired by the recent Trek books, but with Trek shows, but with teenage protagonists. And it's just really thrilling, beautifully written stuff. It's really fun.
When I got my Trump bucks, I treated myself to Volume 2 of Marvel Masters of Suspense, which is it's an omnibus of these 5-page horror and science fiction stories that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did for years, that were in books like Strange Tales and Tales to Astonish, but also in the back of the superhero anthologies once those got going. And the stories are, they're fun. They have these little weird twists, which they repeat the same twist an awful lot. And they're not that great, but the art is just insanely exceptional. And I love that book. Thank you, Trump Bucks.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on and doing the interview, and sorry for the technical difficulties.
You're not alone in technical difficulties, let me tell you.
Just want to, hope you guys stay safe and healthy, and we'll be looking for the stuff that is coming out from you in the future.
Yeah, you too, Chad.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. You too.
Good there.
All right, I'll send this the link to you guys when this is up, and again, thanks again, and hope to talk to you soon in the future.
Thanks a lot.
Take care, Chad.
See you.